After 25 years in the green industry and a PhD in field, I can tell you one thing, that some of the most popular trees being planted in American landscapes are a complete mistake. They crack in storms, they crawl into your foundation, and they take over your property. And some of them are flat out illegal to sell in certain states. And I've spent 25 years pulling these trees out of landscapes. So today, I'm giving you 12 trees that I'll never use in landscapes again. Now, before anybody gets upset, I know some of you have one of these in your yard right now, and that's okay. I'm not here to make you feel bad. I'm here to save the next person from making the same expensive mistake. Because here's the thing, a tree is a 20, 30, 50-year decision. You don't get a do-over the way you do with a flat of annuals. So when I tell you I would never plant these trees, it's because I've watched them fail. So let's start with the one that drives me absolutely crazy. Number one on our list is this tree here behind me. This is Pyrus Cottonwood Bradfordi, or the Bradford pear. And I totally understand why homeowners fall in love with this tree. It grows fast, it's cheap, and in the spring, it is loaded with flowers. But here's where things go downhill for Bradford pear. That fast growth means weak wood. The branching structure is so tight that these trees literally split themselves apart with the first good wind or an ice storm. Usually right around year 15, right when you've gotten attached to your tree, is when this will happen. On top of that, it's become one of the most aggressive, invasive trees in the entire country. Several states have actually banned the sale of it. Oh, and those pretty flowers, they smell like rotting fish as well. If you're looking for a tree that flowers in the spring, I would recommend looking into serviceberries or also eastern redbuds. Number two on our list is Albizia julibrisans, or the mimosa tree. Those pink feathery flowers are gorgeous, I'll give it that, but this is a weed tree that has a publicist. Mimosa seeds itself everywhere. It pops up in ditches, fence lines, for a quarter-mile around, and it's short-lived and disease-prone on top of that. You plant one pretty tree and you spend the rest of the decade pulling up its children. Instead, if you want that delicate, airy look, go for a redbud again, or native fringe trees. Number three on the list, and this is going to get a lot of hate in the comments, I already know, that crepe myrtle, or Lagostromia indica. And you may be thinking, well, Dr. Warren, it has beautiful flowers in the summer, exfoliating bark, beautiful fall color. What is there not to like? My first pet peeve about crepe myrtle, and this is a big one, it is massively, massively, massively overused. I've been on streets where every single yard had the same crepe myrtle. Monoculture planting is how disease spread, and we're seeing that happen in real time. Which brings me to my second problem with crepe myrtle bark scale. This is an invasive insect that's been spreading aggressively across the southeast, and it coats the branches with white, fuzzy, cottony residue. The second insect problem with crepe myrtles is aphids, and aphids leave the sooty mold. That black, sappy film coats the leaves, blocks sunlight, and turns what's supposed to be a gorgeous summer blooming tree into a black and sticky mess. And I want to be honest with you, once that scale aphid sooty mold cycle gets going, it's a multi-year treatment problem to get it corrected. But here's what really drives me crazy, the fourth issue, and it's completely avoidable, is that people want to plant the wrong cultivar in the wrong location. They buy a Natchez crepe myrtle that gets 30 feet tall, and they want to cram it underneath the eave of a house or right up next to a sidewalk. Look, am I saying every crepe myrtle is a mistake? No, not necessarily. There's several newer cultivars that are dwarfed and also bark scale resistant. But as a blanket recommendation for a yard tree, crepe myrtle is not going to be the first on my list, because after 25 years in the green industry, I've seen the same mistakes occur with crepe myrtle over and over again. Number four on our list is bamboo. And bamboo is technically a grass, but people plant it in mass as a screen and limb it up, so it makes the list. And this is why I call it a plant that earns its keep for about 1 year. After about a year, the running varieties send rhizomes under your fence, into your neighbor's yard, up through the patio, and I have seen bamboo destroy friendships and families alike. Instead, and I've said this before, for fast, dense privacy screens, look into using arborvitaes. Arborvitaes will provide the screen without the lawsuit. Number five on our list is Chinese elm, or Ulmus parvifolia, and people grab this one because it grows fast and tolerates poor soils, and I understand that completely. But fast growing usually means weak and messy, and Chinese elm is no exception. Brittle wood, constant seedling sprouts everywhere, and it's invasive in much of the country. Instead, use a disease-resistant native elm, Ulmus americana, or honestly, just go with the red maple. If you're finding this video useful, go ahead and hit the like button below. It helps other people find this video that might need this information. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. I put out a video once a week based on 25 years of real-world green industry experience. Now let's get back into it. Number 6 on our list is liquidambar styraziflua, or the sweet gum, which has these beautiful starfish-shaped leaves. And you may be asking yourself, well, what's the problem? 2 words are the problem: gumballs. Those spiky seed balls that drop by the thousands, and they're absolute ankle breakers. You can't mow them, you can't rake them easily, and they will roll an unsuspecting person right off their feet. The roots are shallow, aggressive, and can buckle sidewalks, and that is a no for me. Instead, there's actually fruitless sweet gum cultivars called rotunda loba, the same tree, just no gumballs. Or look at using a sugar maple as an alternative. You will get very similar yellow to orange fall color. Number 7 on our list is going to be sycamore, or Platanus occidentalis. Now, sycamore is a beautiful, tall shade tree. That mottled, peeling bark on mature specimens is striking. But I want to be honest with you about it. This tree is a year-round cleanup job. It drops big leaves, it sheds bark in sheets, and then it produces those long, large, hanging seed balls that fall and litter the ground around the tree season after season after season. If you have a sycamore around a driveway or a patio, you'll never stop sweeping. Sycamore is gorgeous in park settings like you see here, but in a residential landscape, it is a part-time job in terms of the maintenance required to keep the ground clean around it. Instead of using sycamore, look into using native black gum or native oaks. They will produce a lot of shade with a fraction of the maintenance sycamore requires. Number 8 on our list is silver maple, or Acer saccharinum. The silver maple grows fast, and that's exactly the problem. Because by now, you know what I'm going to say, that fast growth equals weak wood. These trees are notorious for dropping limbs in storms. They are short-lived, and they have some of the most aggressive shallow roots in any of the trees we use in the industry. They'll lift your driveways and invade your sewer lines looking for water. Instead, use its cousin, the red maple or a sugar maple. Slower growing, stronger wood, and they'll outlive the house, unlike the silver maple. Number 9 on the list is this massive tree behind me. This is Populus deltoides, or the cottonwood tree. Now, cottonwood grows incredibly fast and gives you shade in a hurry, but here's the trade-off. Weak wood that breaks, aggressive water-seeking roots, and in early summer, the female trees release that cottony fluff that coats your entire yard, your screens, your gutters, everything. It looks like it snowed in June. Instead, if you need a tidier tree than cottonwood, look into oaks or perhaps even a native red maple. Number 10 on our list is Ginkgo tree, or Ginkgo biloba. Personally, I love Ginkgo. Once mature, it is a beautiful specimen of a tree. Those fan-shaped leaves that turn golden during the fall. The problem with Ginkgo is that it's dioecious, meaning there's separate male and female plants. And if you select a female plant, you're going to be in a world of hurt. The female Ginkgo plant produces a fruit-like structure that when it drops and ripens smells exactly like, well, I'm trying to be polite here, like rotting garbage. It is genuinely one of the worst smells in horticulture. The fix is easy. Never plant a seedling Ginkgo because you don't know what you're going to get. Instead, go to a reputable retail garden center and purchase a named cultivar Ginkgo. The 2 that I recommend are Autumn Gold and Princeton Century. Those 2 cultivars have all of the beauty and none of the stink. Number 11 on the list is technically a shrub, but people limit up into trees all the time, so it makes the list. This is privet, or Ligustrum sinensis, and is one of the most invasive plants in the entire southeast. It forms dense thickets. It shades out and chokes out every native plant around it. The birds spread the seed everywhere, and it's a nightmare to eradicate. And this is what drives me crazy about privet. To this day, it is still sold in retail garden centers. Instead of using privet, look at a native holly, or perhaps oak leaf holly, or Nellie R. Stevens holly. It's far better and is not invasive to the local environment. And we'll finish with weeping willow, or Salix nigra. I know it's romantic, it's beautiful by the lake, and everybody dreams of having one in their landscape. But let me tell you what actually happens. The roots are shallow, aggressive, and they will travel a long ways looking for water, straight into your septic tank, your drain field lines, and your water line. The wood is weak and constantly dropping branches. The tree is short-lived and is messy. Instead, if you've got a wet spot and you want that graceful look, plant a river birch or a bald cypress. Both love wet feet, both are tough as nails, and both are kind of aggressive, but not near as aggressive as the weeping willow. So there you have it, 12 trees I will never use again after 25 years of doing this for a living. Here's the big takeaway. A tree is one of the longest decisions you'll ever make in your landscape. So before you buy one because it was cheap or fast or pretty at the garden center, ask yourself, what's it going to do in 20 years, in 30 years? Drop a comment and let me know which of these trees are growing in your yard right now. Also let us know the USDA zone in the state. Guys, as always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor, and as always, happy gardening.